The word pyramid is normally associated with Egypt and the Giza Plateau. However, the majority of the world's pyramids are actually covered by soil and forests. 250 of them are in the central Chinese province of Shaanxi. Thousands of them are in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Belize, and Mexico, all in different climate belts. Pyramids are located on 6 continents, including Antarctica. You must learn to distinguish the original, oldest and most superior pyramids from the replicas, built by pharaohs and Chinese emperors. These replicas were built with inferior material, like mud or brick, by those who did not understand the true purpose of the original pyramids. Original pyramids are located in Egypt on the Giza Plateau, in Mexico in the city of Teotihuacan, in Peru, China, and Bosnia. They are all over the world. The original pyramids were either built by a super civilization, or there were several, highly advanced civilizations that were communicating with each other. These original pyramids were built by intelligent beings, with superior technology. The pharaoh's agents did not have the knowledge or engineering skills to build the pyramids known as the Great Pyramid, Khafre, and Snefru. The same can be said of the city of Teotihuacan, the Pyramid del Sol, and Pyramid de la Luna. The ancient continent of Atlantis existed in what is now the Caribbean Sea and North Atlantic Ocean. The civilization of Atlantis spanned a time period of over 300,000 years. Atlantis coexisted during the same time period as the continent of Lemuria, which was located in what is now the Pacific Ocean. The human population of Atlantis had several differences with the reptilian Lemuria. There were many attacks, wars, and genetic experiments in hybridization as well as attempts at peace between the two civilizations, which always failed. Winged dragons existed in those days. With the help of the giant Hyperboreans whom the ancient Greeks referred to as Olympians, the Atlanteans created a hybrid being, who was a mix of Atlantean and Hyperborean genetics. Egyptians, who were Atlantean Lyrian refugees, were in the process of building a new civilization from the remnants of their 2 major ancestral ones that were destroyed. The beings from Sirius A helped them, as they were a major factor in the interactions of Atlantis. In Egypt, the reptilian gods were known as Osiris and Isis. The Egyptian panacea of gods included a large variety of hybrid creations, half human, half animal. This was reminiscent of the Atlantean hybrid experiments that found their way into Egyptian culture, and was promoted by the Syrians who were preparing that culture for a reptilian takeover. Meanwhile, the hybrid beings developed into a warrior cult, with each hybrid being paired with a winged dragon. Each winged dragon and rider was genetically and mentally connected to each other. Thus, these hybrid beings were known as dragon riders, defending and protecting Atlantis from Lemurian attacks. Atlantis also had vehicles that the ancient Hindus called Vimanas. Vimanas were used by the Atlanteans to attack Lemurian territories. As time progressed, wars between the 2 continents intensified. Atlanteans used crystal technology to create disturbances in the morphogenetic grid of the planet, eventually causing Lemuria to sink into the crust of the Earth's upper mantle. The sinking of Lemuria weakened the tectonic plates under Atlantis. By the year 10,500 BC, the continent of Atlantis was doomed. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis sealed its fate. The dragon riders assisted in the evacuation of the continent to Africa, North and South America, Europe, and parts of Asia. Some dragon riders settled in the northern part of Scandinavia, where eventually they became known as the Frost Giants or Jotun in Viking lore. The Frost Giants mated with human settlers that came from the east, creating the original Viking peoples. The descendants of the hybrid Jotun became the Viking leaders and chieftains, defending Scandinavia from invaders as well as spreading their culture across Europe and even into North and South America. These Viking warriors also created colonies in western France and Eastern Europe, especially Poland and Russia, laying the genetic foundations for the Crusaders and Templars. Dragon riders who helped colonize ancient Egypt were the keepers of ancient knowledge and technology. These dragon riders were the defenders of history as well as the protectors of the new settlers. As dynasties of ancient Egypt further developed, dragon rider descendants became the protectors of the temples. Dragon riders also became lion tamers, lion riders, and snake charmers. While the dragon riders included some women, but most were men. Male dragon riders guarded the pharaohs and high priests. Using the closely guarded secrets of Atlantean technology, the dragon riders built the Sphinx and the pyramids at the Giza Plateau using sound waves and electromagnetic energies to levitate the heavy stones. After several millennia of Egyptian culture expansion, one group of these guardians became seafarers, colonizing the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Known as the Phoenicians, this group was linguistically connected to the legend of the phoenix, the mystical bird that dies in flames, then rises from the ashes. This was an allegorical legend of the dragon riders, whose nation went up in volcanic flames, then rose again from the destruction to create new societies. During the time of the Hebrews' sojourn in Egypt, the Egyptian princess Skoda, along with her entourage, crossed the Mediterranean Sea to Spain. From Spain they proceeded to Ireland and then to Scotland. In fact, Scotland is named after Princess Skoda. Atlantean refugees colonized Ireland after the destruction of their homeland. Egyptian beads and other artifacts have been found in Ireland, confirming the Atlantean role in the colonization of Ireland. Atlantean refugees blended with the descendants of Princess Skoda and the dragon riders, creating tribes and dynasties whose warriors also participated in the Crusades as the forerunners of the Templars. In this way, the descendants of the dragon riders or early Templars spread across the Levant, the western portion of the Middle East, to North Africa, Europe, and North and South America. The dragon riders of Atlantis carried their knowledge to Egypt, ancient Israel, Europe, and North America. Then, on to the Caribbean Sea, the site of ancient Atlantis. Here, on the tiny island of Nevis, the top of an Atlantean mountain, the revived and renewed Templars come to life again. Full circle. Nevis, the name of this island, comes from the Spanish word nieves, which means snow. The ancient Hebrews have nothing to do with modern Jews. The original Hebrews were created by the Syrians in Egypt, by combining Syrian and Lyrian genetics. These people were tall and powerful, and spoke the Syrian language, which is the equivalent to the ancient Hebrew language. Scholars agree that the Hebrew language suddenly appeared on the scene. The ancient peoples of Palestine spoke Aramaic, which was the parent language of Arabic, Farsi, and several other Middle Eastern dialects. Originally, Hebrew was a language used exclusively by the priesthood and the Egyptian secret society. Eventually, ancient Hebrew began to mix with Aramaic, among other languages. The Hebrews were actually paid workers in Egypt. They were sent to Canaan to assimilate the native cultures for the Egyptian Empire. They mixed with the local tribes of Sumerian hybrid descendants, practicing blood ritual and human sacrifice. All of this was incorporated into a conglomerate religion based on ancient Egyptian, Atlantean or Syrian beliefs. That is how Judaism was born. The story of the exodus of the Jews from Egypt is a poor retelling of the destruction of the island of Santorini in the eastern Mediterranean Sea by volcanic explosion. The lava dispersed into the sea, causing it to turn blood red. The volcanic ash and rock that spewed forth created the legend of the plagues on Egypt. Many citizens fled the area. The Red Sea parted, when the ground under the water rose up, exposing land that could then be crossed. Several hours later, it sank back down, drowning whoever was still trying to cross. The Middle East became a focal point for the Syrians and their reptilian allies. Together, they generated a new version of religion and culture for ease of global control and domination. What better way to do that than by programming a race of nomadic people that would carry the religion and culture everywhere on the earth? Whenever the conditions within the experiment became unmanageable, the particular overseer group made corrections by redirecting or culling the herd. The Hebrew language itself did not appear until after the Hebrews left Egypt, and then only used for religious ceremonial purposes by the priests. In fact, many of the terms and names used in the Hebrew religion came from the Egyptian ceremonial rites. The name, Moses, originates from the title given to adepts of the secret Egyptian pyramid cult. This Egyptian ceremonial title, Moshe, means, "he who is anointed with crocodile fat from the Nile River." Emmanuel or Christ spent his formative years in the Egyptian temples in what is now called Cairo. These 20 missing years of his life were actually spent in India and Egypt, learning the ancient esoteric religion and rituals, where he was called the Messiah. The Hebrew word is Mashiach. The word in ancient Egyptian is Mesa. Mesa was also the name of the crocodile fat from the crocodiles of the Nile. The priests anointed themselves with oil as the Bible indicates, "I anointeth your head with oil." This ceremony was performed inside the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. In Hebrew it meant, "out from the water," in reference to the crocodiles. To be anointed with crocodile fat rendered into an oil, was to absorb powerful, unchanging reptilian energy and assimilate this into the body. Moshe, or Moses, was a ritual title, not a person's name, and was a reference to the crocodile fat used in temple and pyramid ceremonies. Therefore, Messiah became Messiah or Mashiach in Hebrew. Christ was called the Messiah. This had nothing to do with being an emissary of God, rather this meant that he was anointed into the reptilian religion. A leader such as a Moses was a logical choice to spearhead a migration of people to safety from a place of turmoil, such as when the destruction of the island of Santorini, also known as Thera, blew up and created havoc on Egyptian territory, causing many to flee. It would also make sense for the Syrian controllers of Egypt to send out their genetic creations, the Hebrews, to a place of safety in the Sinai desert like a safekeeping until needed. The Hebrews carried the new coded laws in the Ark of the Covenant, coven of ants, that only the priests could touch. When the University of Minnesota in the 1960s attempted to build the Ark as described with instructions in the Bible, it was so electrically charged that it had to be dismantled. This is why the ancient Hebrew priests entered into the Ark area alone for safety reasons. They also had to wear white linen, as non-conductive clothing, and wore a special breastplate that grounded them electrically, and acted as a protective shield. The Ark was in fact a communication device. This is why the priests had messages from God whenever they were in the Ark's presence. The Ark also acted as a location device for beacons originating outside of this planet. The Ark was originally kept in the Great Pyramid to focalize energies. It was sent with the Hebrews for safekeeping. It has since traveled from Egypt to Canaan, or Israel to Ethiopia and back to Israel. And now is located under the pyramid again. However, there are actually two arks. The second one is in Jerusalem. During the missing years of Emmanuel's life, from approximately the age of 13 to 33 years old, he studied amongst the dragon rider descendants in Greece, Egypt, Tibet, and India. Evidence of this is found across Asia all the way to Japan, where the grandchildren of Emmanuel created a new dynasty. Another planet in orbit around Sirius A is a world called Korodi. Here, the Syrians created high-intelligence cat-like beings. These cat-like beings are called the Lion People. In the 1970s and 1980s, the government created a cartoon for children that described these beings. In the high astral levels, there is an etheric race of lion beings who are gold, have wings, and violet eyes. The name of the race is Arn. Ari is also the old Hebrew word for lion. Their frequency is more powerful than the dolphin frequency. The Ari created the Ohala Council that governs the Sirius A star system. The Korodi were generated by mixing the genetics of the Syrians with the energy of the Arn. This is what was brought to ancient Egypt. As the non-physical energy descended into physical reality, DNA formed that could be used to create corporeal life. This was then mixed with human and wild lion DNA to form the common house cat found on Earth. The cat was given to every home in ancient Egypt, and programmed to leave at night to report back to their alien controllers. This is why cats to this day have the urge to go out at night. This also explains their aloof nature. The Syrians incorporated worship of the cat idol into the Egyptian religion to ensure the perpetuity of this method of spying. The Syrians also built the Sphinx as a symbolic reminder of the blending of human genetics with lion frequency. This was a way to energetically bind future civilization to the Syrians. The Sphinx was designed to face the morning star Sirius A each day. The face on the Sphinx is identical to the face on the Mars monument that looks down to the Earth at the Sphinx. In the Sirius A star system, the main world is called Qum. The ancient name for Egypt is Kem or Qum. In Arabic, Cairo means Mars. Between the Yucatan and the mainland in the Gulf of Mexico is the Bay of Campeche with the same name as Qum. Now you understand why there are pyramids on both sides of the Atlantic. Syrian technology built the complexes at the Cydonia Plateau on Mars, upon the arrival of the first Lyrian refugees. The new Martians were unaware of the close Syrian connection to the reptilians. The original pyramids, built after the destruction of Atlantis, were energy points. They were the same shapes underground as above, making them perfect octahedrons. At their center is a tetrahedron. This master shape is the archetype symbol for God-mind totality. Anything at its exact center is absolutely protected. The octahedron is also the shape of the delta-T antenna used at the Montauk project. This shape, when energized in the proper color codes, causes interdimensional rifts, creating vortices and wormholes. Rituals performed at this center point produce vast energies that can be transmitted through hyperspace to anywhere in creation. The nexus point on a hollow planet is always at the 19th parallel. This is evident on Earth by the Hawaiian volcanoes located at the 19th parallel, and by the Mons volcano on Mars at the 19th parallel, as well as the red spot on Jupiter, also located at the 19th parallel. The geometry built into the monuments on Mars by the Syrians and Lyrian colonists explains about the 19th parallel through its geometric equations and measurements. This geometry is also replicated and contained within the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Some researchers claim that the pyramids were pumping stations for underground Nile tributaries. This is only partially true. Because water is an electromagnetic amplifier, it was used to surround the ritual chamber located in the delta T, in order to boost ritual energy. Using these methods, the ancient Egyptians controlled weather, destroyed enemies, created stargates, and boosted their reptilian energies during ceremony. This is also why the Montauk project was located near vast amounts of water. The Great Pyramid is part of a protective solar system grid, linking the Moon and Mars monuments together, to produce a force field to repel invaders. The Great Pyramid is also connected to other points on the Earth, such as Stonehenge, a submerged Atlantean crystal, Tiahuanaco, Ayers Rock, and the White Pyramid in western China. Together, they form an energy containment field, similar to an electric fence. The HARP project in Alaska taps into this. The pure-blood reptilians worship the transparent beings from the astral planes as their creators. These transparent beings have a mass consciousness, like an oversoul. They are basically genderless, although in terms of physical reality, their characteristics and traits render them more masculine than feminine. When the reptilians brought their religion to the Sumerians, they were careful to introduce it in a way that would be accepted and followed. First, they created a gender base for a gender-minded population. Then, they instilled fear to control the mind patterns. Cleverly, they devised a religion based on a male-female, god-goddess control system. The male god was called Nimrod, the female goddess, Semiramis. They are depicted as half-human, half-reptilian. Their appearances were designed to frighten the humans into submission. Meanwhile, a dynastic culture similar to the reptilian Chinese dynasties was forming in Egypt. Nimrod and Semiramis eventually became Osiris and Isis of Egypt, and the Apollo and Athena of Greece, among many other gods. All used the male and female, god and goddess theme because it represented the original reptilian androgyny and the separation of the human prototype into the male and female, Adam and Eve. The reptilian control religion based on Osiris and Isis fanned out over Northeast Africa and the Middle East. At the same time, the reptilian Sumerian cult of Nimrod and Semiramis fanned out over Central Asia. A unification of these beliefs was necessary to accomplish the plan set forth from the beginning. This is why Abraham originated in the Sumerian city of Ur, journeying westward toward the Middle East. It was no accident that the followers of Abraham found themselves in Egypt, where the Syrians then created the Hebrews. The Hebrews were set up to be the cultural prototype for the future world. This is why they were programmed to wander all over the earth and influence all existing cultures. With all of this as a background, the reptilian blue bloods now needed to form a global empire that would encompass the cultures that they had inspired. They needed to counteract the other alien groups that had been working diligently in Europe to create more human civilizations. History repeats itself when lessons needed are not learned. History becomes current events. Current events become an amazing future. On the 15th of May 2022, there have been many claims that the Great Sphinx has closed his eyes. With the body of a lion and the head of a human, the Sphinx guards over the three pyramids of Giza. Under the sand until 1939, the Sphinx is the oldest known monumental sculpture in Egypt. Pictures of the Sphinx with closed eyes were taken by many people, sparking widespread controversy on social media, after some people wondered how the Sphinx's eyes were closed, without human intervention. There's been many rumors and speculation on this phenomenon, and claims that the images were photoshopped. To quell the rumors, the Ministry of Antiquities declared that the photo was taken in bad lighting, with a low-quality camera, making it seem like the Sphinx had really closed its eyes. They added, the Sphinx did not blink, and the images circulating were likely taken from indirect angles. Some activists posted pictures and live footage of the Sphinx on social media, showing the Sphinx with closed eyes. Muhammad Hassan in a Facebook post stated, "The Sphinx has closed its eyes without the intervention of any archaeological authority, restoration, or anyone getting close to the eyes." The classical writers called the statue the Sphinx, probably derived from an ancient Egyptian word, meaning living image of the sun god. In Egypt, the Sphinx is known in Arabic as Abu al-Hol, translating literally to father of dread, but more generally meaning the terrifying one. While there may be a number of reasons the images could have shown the statue appear to be sleeping, many people are deeply concerned, and feel a sense of foreboding. Some say it's a sign that a major earth-changing event is imminent. All this fuss over an old statue might seem trivial, but it is extremely significant. It is said that if the Sphinx closed his eyes, all the soldiers of the pharaoh would flee to the hideouts, and never return because Ra would return, and mankind would be destroyed. In ancient times, the eye of Ra was typically thought of as a violent, destructive force linked to the heat of the sun. In the myth called the destruction of mankind, related in the Book of the Heavenly Cow from the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BC, Ra uses the eye as a weapon against humans, who have rebelled against his authority. He sends the eye, Hathor, in her aggressive manifestation as the lioness goddess Sekhmet, to massacre them.
As you're looking at today's images, and these are from satellites that orbit the Earth, and they measure this radiation from the sun. The very center of this is a white and black circle that represents our planet. The white side is the sun-facing side. You're looking at a tremendous distortion in our shields, and for you guys that have watched this channel long enough, you know exactly where I'm going with this. And if you think about it, this extreme heat that we're dealing with, guys, record-breaking heat, that started in May, now we're into June and it's even worse, is a couple of months ahead of its time. That's why we have a 60% chance of tropical development in the Atlantic. But look at what went on. Look at the collapse, the bending and breaking. And now, every time that happens, it allows radiation closer to the Earth, even penetrating our atmosphere and scattering onto the surface of the Earth. You see the drought, you see your plants drying up, the sunburn, the large dust clouds around the planet. We just had one over in the Phoenix area. And look at these crazy bends at both poles. And when I'm going to show you this from another view from the same group of satellites, a different perspective altogether, and I'm going to explain what we're dealing with these collapses and how that allows the radiation that should be staying on the outside to penetrate all the way down and fry your garden and all the other things that we're seeing right now. But again, look at this going through today to the last few frames. And right in there, that's how it's supposed to be without the bends at the tip. Right about just like that. And what you'll see is that CERN's power is going up and down. Now, this is the same thing's happening. Much wider view. The Earth is in the center, sun facing. Is the right side. This red bow is the radiation that we do not want around our planet. And that's why the magnetopause works with our plasma sphere, which is represented in the green right there in the front of the Earth. Part of that's our protection. But where you have a gap there, and I've got the red arrow in, it's called a cusp. C-U-S-P, cusp. And that, when that opens, radiation pours in, and you're going to see that today. And then I recorded it yesterday. It was worse.
Ra, a gray elf from the underworld, is the regent of Saturn. El is an abbreviated term for the gray species, Elohim. In Babylon, they were called Ili, Ilu, or Illumi, the origin of Coven Illuminati. They were also known as Lilith's Shining Ones, because they emitted light. When they say, "You're not worthy to go to heaven," that's the El. They paused human evolution up to heaven, so they can continue to harvest us. Think of this as a real player game, where universes are owned by different races or groups, because they are in the game itself, not outside. You were pulled from the original location we call East or Heaven in the game, into here, kept prisoner, and not allowed to exit the game.